Okay, brother.
Good evening, everybody. I have the honor and privilege to be a part of at least moderating the panel. I don't know how wild y'all are going to get, but we've seen wilder days, it looks like. So I'm Tam Roman, the statewide program director for the Free Campaign, which is the women's division of EXPO, Ex-incarcerated People Organizing. We had to make sure there were some women up here talking, you know what I mean? Because we don't get up here much. So, but really honored beyond measure for what you all went into the depths of witnessing such a travesty all the way around and the rise up from it. I think about Andre Day, we rise up, right? And you did, and then you captured a story out of this world. So what I want to do right as we get started though is I want to take a moment of silence. I'm gonna get choked up, but I want to take a moment of silence for, I looked up that young man is at Oak Hill Correctional. His mandatory release date is 2027, and his maximum discharge is 2035. And you asked for leniency in that journey, and you met with him. But I want to take a moment of silence for the young folks around here now, struggling, wondering who they are, what they are, where they need to be, do they deserve to be, right? And for the folks we lost this year to gun violence or to the streets or suicide or addiction or mental health. And if anybody wants to throw out some names you want to lift up, we'll hold it all in circle and in our hearts, whether you're a prayer person or a good energy. So let's just take 1 minute of silence for all the things you've experienced, your family, those folks out there wondering, right in this neighborhood, right? Right in this neighborhood, wondering. So let's take a moment of silence. If you want to throw out a name to lift up that we can hold in our hearts and carry with us, let's do that.
Evans.
Tamar Jagers.
Joseph Martin. Johnny Lee
That's
Burnett.
our son, just use that one.
Terrence Moore.
Joseph Stevens.
Eric Godway.
Tammy. Carlos.
Year-old girl that just died Sunday.
The woman who's trapped in a house right now.
All the women as victims of domestic violence.
Those folks trapped in themselves, wondering. And all those that were unspoken, thank you so much. Whew. Could feel it. Could feel it. So what I'd like to do is just to have you introduce yourself. The question I'd like you to answer, Mr. Dillard, we'll start with you, sir. First, your name. Why are you here today, though? What made you want to be here in this moment for this conversation?
Wow, that could be a long answer.
Right, we only have so much time.
I'm Jerome Dillard, Executive Director of EXPO. And why I'm here, I also respond to violence and interrupt violence in Madison with the focus interruption. And I've been doing that for about 5 years, and just the cries that I heard from the loved ones in the courts, at the hospital, I guess that's why I do.
Thank you.
I'm Santana Coleman. I'm the co-producer of the film and also the Impact Campaign Advisor. And I'm here because I wanted to, I love seeing the genuine reactions of people watching the film. Obviously, it was very unfortunate what happened to Claude, Victoria, and even, Nathan and his family. But seeing the change that it actually makes, is just beautiful.
Claude Motley, obviously you saw the movie. You probably know me a little more intimate than I want y'all to know me right this and sitting looking at y'all, but I'm here because y'all saw value in my story, and I see value in real quick though, let me just, I'm sorry, step on you real quick, but I just wanna say, cause I don't wanna look at that movie that often, cause it hurts.
Yeah.
But one thing I do know, my man Scott, every step of the way, he was with me, if y'all noticed that, you know? He always had my back, man. Good for him.
Yes.
Yeah, so you know what, I just wanna say that now, I just noticed it, like, but anyway, so yeah, so I'm happy y'all enjoyed it, and I hope it inspires y'all to do better and do more, cause it's all we can do is just push forward.
Yes, sir.
My name is Ray Mendoza. I'm the violence interruption supervisor for 414 Life here in Milwaukee. And I'm here because I'm that kid that hurt him. I did that in my lifetime. I'm the one with the sentence that kid had. So that's why I'm here.
It's just deep already, right? And my hope and prayer for this evening is that we reach into some of those spaces, not only for reparation of the things that have happened, but that we can find a way as a community to make it the kind of world we need for you, our families, our kids, our children. So the next question I would have is, what do you think, just right off the top of your head, after witnessing what you watched in Claude's story, and like Claude said, there's so many, many stories, and what do you think, where do we begin, Jerome, to, like I saw restorative justice, right? I believe in restoration because justice as it sits today is not just. Claude barely had a conversation in that, right? He was fortunate. The family, the community that was impacted by everything, your friend, right, was not much in that process. That's not really justice, right? So what are your thoughts about an approach? What do we need to do for restoration? And then we can do prevention, right? Or we can be a part of that. So what would you say that we need to begin with, Jerome, for that restoration and prevention?
Wow. I don't take that too lightly. But as I look around this room at some of the individuals who I've met over the years, I feel, number one, we need to bring them into this work. I see a couple of young men back there who was that kid's age, and they're home now, and they get it. We need to bring them into this work, because our youth will look at me, oh man, you washed up, dog. Man, you done lived your life.
Burn up.
You know what I'm saying? You done lived your life, now you trying to tell me what not to do. But in reality, you know, I had young men to listen to me. I breathed on them, and they listened. I see there's some in this room, bringing them into this work because they will listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a crucial part of turning this thing around.
What do you think, Santana?
I mean, I agree. I haven't been in this work as long as you, for sure.
She's really showing your age.
All the love.
I don't care how old you are.
I mean, you are very much so more experienced than me in this work. You know, I've only been doing this portion of like impact since October, but you know, what I'm finding is also that, you know, it really takes a village to raise a child. And I think back when I feel so bad when I say this in like some rooms, but like I'm only 30 in 2 weeks, so I know I'm young, but like thank you. But when I was growing up, I really felt community, and I don't feel that now, and I don't think kids feel that now. I definitely felt more like several people were raising me at once, you know, teachers and community members and family members. And I think, you know, like he said, we all just literally have to like love on these kids and like join together and show them better ways, show them different ways, show them more things to do, more things to be. And I think, you know, through the impact work that we're doing, we're really kind of finding that, you know, the programs, the schools, we all have a responsibility to, you know, correct their mistakes and prevent them from continuing to make mistakes.
No doubt.
I love that.
No
We
doubt.
all have a responsibility. It ain't
No doubt.
somebody else's issue.
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
all of us.
That's right.
All right, Claude.
You know, the thing about it is that we're not in this situation, we're not suffering through this by accident. This is a process that, you know, we all are in. And everybody, we can't just look at one thing and say, oh, that's gonna solve the problem. You know, we all have a price to pay, we all have to be in this situation, and we all have to know our lane, know what we can do to make a difference, you know? So, one of the things that we were talking about, we said the justice system, you know, one of the things I was striving for is to make a change within the justice system, to show, you know, my wife and I, we work in a situation that we try to do that right now. But, you know, the thing about it is that by doing that, we cannot be doing things one-on-one, and that's where other people might work, you know, going out, talking to people, talking to these kids. You know, and I have to, as a person that's doing my job, I have to rely on y'all to do your job. So we all gotta think about what we individually can do, you know, and if we work together, once again, we start to come together as a community. That's how a community is made, not by one person solving everything and everybody just standing back watching, you know. Everybody has to do their part and be active in this. That's what our goals are and our impact.
Thank you, Claude. Ray.
True that. That's a loaded question. First of all, for every adult that's in this room, we need to replace that adult with 5 of them youth. Like Jerome said, we gotta bring them to the table. They haven't been to the table, so they've been the menu all these years. And they're eating each other up alive right now. And so that has to be part of the solution. But at the same time, the systemic racism that's in place needs to be taken out of place. The justice, that so-called justice that's in place needs to be changed. The waiving of youth to adult court needs to be changed. And then at the same time, the culture in the community needs to be changed. Men need to stand up and be men and raise their kids, raise their sons. Women need to raise their daughters. Raise your son to be a man, raise your daughter to be a woman. And then the school systems need to change. Stop treating the schoolhouses like prison houses. In the cell block, we walk through a metal detector. In the schoolhouse, we walk through a metal detector. In the cell block, they got police that monitor that building. In the schoolhouse, they got police that monitor that schoolhouse. We need to stop making it comfortable for them to be around police and be around that type of environment, because that's what they're gonna get used to doing. And that's what they're gonna be looking forward to. That pipeline needs to get shut down. The way they pour cement in them tunnels coming from Mexico to the United States, where they run them drugs through, they need to pour cement in that pipeline and shut it down, so that our kids stop going from the schoolyard to the prison yard. We need to show them that the 3 yards that's available to them in their lives there's not a choice. We have to make it mandatory that they choose the backyard instead of the graveyard or the prison yard. We have to be accountable for everything that we messed up in our lives. A lot of us went to prison and left these young people to raise themselves. So we gotta hold ourselves accountable and start training those that are out here to be the guides and the teachers and the trainers of these younger boys and girls that are out here now. We gotta stop taking advantage of what's the so-called weakness of the woman and hurting the woman the way we do. Stop killing these women, stop killing these little girls out here. And then, on top of all of that, we need to make it cool and make it acceptable for men of color to deal with our mental health issues. We need to be cool for men of color to ask for help to deal with the trauma that we've been through in our lives. need to make it cool for men to lead our families into counseling sessions so that we can fix our families. And we need to make it cool to make self-care something that we all do on a daily basis.
All right, Ray. Wow. We about to keep going with that one, huh? So I was thinking when you said, and this is interesting because about 10 years ago, so since my own release from prison 19 years ago, and I am working back in prisons with young people and folks coming in. Can you get a chair for, okay. Witnessing the generations of families incarcerated, right? But what you said really struck me, Ray, is that when you said we need to make schools not look like and feel like prisons. So when I was doing, I don't remember what it was a few years ago, but when we went by the school, the only difference between, we took a picture of a prison and the picture of a school, but the prison without the barbed wire, it looked exactly the same. Literally like we have kids in institutions to begin with, right? Rather than, so when you were talking about that, I really do want to hear about, when I listened to that young man talk about, and you know, Claude, you talked about your own trauma. You didn't name it trauma, you didn't, except for maybe on the other side of it.
Right.
But thinking about that young man who said, I grew up with a healthy family. So he says, right? For most of us, we don't even know what healthy looks like for generations. So I'm curious, when you think about that from whatever, you know, background you all come from, wherever you grew up, where did you get the idea, or where did you maybe think, because I think for this young man, you know, he was doing what he was doing, right? But not cool. Wondering though, and I've heard Jerome tell his story about a young man growing up on the south side of Chicago, right? Witnessing stuff. What do you think, how do we help these folks recognize what Ray was talking about, the need for mental health, or the need to ask for what you need, that not being a weak thing, or to identify trauma, or that you need some support? What do y'all think about that? Because I think that's many people I work with in prison don't see what they experience as trauma till someone teaches them about it.
Well, we got a pretty big panel here. I'm gonna put it in a nutshell.
Okay.
I know for me, sharing my traumas, what that little boy went through, and how that little boy grew up into a angry, grown man. You know, what took place in my life then, just sharing it with young people or in different settings, just sharing a piece of me has helped others, because they've come to me and said, man, when you told your story, I remembered this. That's opening the door there. You know, I'm not a professional, but we had a shared experience that connected, and as we went on and on, it got deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm.
To one, man, I was raped. I never told anybody this. You know, so that does work for me, but yet still, we do need professionals, which we just don't get. But we are professionals with our lived experience, our stories.
Thank you.
You gave me a lot to think about. I'll tell you that. I'm sitting here thinking. The only thing I will say, I'm sorry, I'm sitting here like still kind of relishing in what you said, but the only thing I will say is that I think the teaching of mental health can be done in schools. That's not the only way, that's not the first way, but I definitely think that's an entryway to getting kids to understand what trauma is, and to like start to dig into the mental health and the self-love aspect. But I'm still digesting that right now, so I'm gonna let other people answer that.
And welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
No problem.
I don't know if you want to take on that question right away, introduce yourself and take on that question. People saw you if they saw the movie, but.
My name is Victoria Davison Adams. I was a part of the film. I am a nurse. I'm currently getting my master's in nursing, and I also have a background in psychology. So I would say a way to deal with trauma is to address it. You have to address trauma. You have to be able to admit that there was some type of trauma. You also have to be able to talk about what the trauma is and know that what you experienced was trauma. A lot of us grew up getting what we call whoopings. You know, we thought that they were normal, and then you grow up and you find out, they kind of weren't very normal. They were borderline abusive when you go back and you think about it. So it's different things like that that you think were normal, and then to stop that, you just have to stop the cycle. I parent differently than how my parents parented me. So it's about parenting differently and breaking generational curses. I think that's one way to combat trauma.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, no doubt.
Walked right in and just nailed it.
I know, right?
What you got, Claude?
You know, hurt people hurt people.
Ooh.
Yes.
That's the first thing we gotta really understand,
Yeah.
you know, and the thing about it is that we have to recognize that within ourselves, you know, just like Victoria said, I left the house at 16 because of abuse, but, you know, I hate to be talking about all the negative things when I talk about these things. It was love in my house, but it wasn't, my father didn't know how to show it. You know what I'm saying? He thought he was doing the best thing, and it all fell apart, and that's how it happens with us, you know what I'm saying? So we don't recognize it, we don't address it until things fall apart, and that's what we have to try to prevent. We see something, we need to say something, you know, we see somebody hurting somebody else, we need to step in and have the courage to be acting like, that ain't my business and everything. Nah, it is your business, you know, and we definitely need to start helping each other, because that person that might be all mad and angry that you dealing in all in their business, probably gonna be thanking you the next day. Probably gonna be, blessing you, So, we have to start looking at ourselves and start recognizing. Do one more thing. Issues. We have to stop avoiding dealing with issues. That's the only way. One of the things we do is sidestep problems in our life. So, once we recognize the issue, we need to have the courage to actually deal with it. So.
Man, I think we think that because it's a household with a mother and a father, that's a normal, a healthy environment, and that's not always the case. Just because you have a man and a woman in a house doesn't mean that the kids are gonna be raised properly. We have a problem in our communities, in people of color communities, that we say whatever happens in this house stays in the house. You don't talk about what happened in our house to nobody else. That stigma needs to be erased from our mindset, and we need to, as parents, we need to reach out for the help that we need to raise our kids. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the system that we reach out to. It could be people in our community. I remember when I was growing up on 24th Place in Walnut, if I went down the block and did something in front of the house, three houses down, they let me have it. You know what I'm saying? And then they told my mom, and she let me have it. And then when my dad got home, he let me have it. And if my sister was there, she gave it to me. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, the whoopings were borderline abusive, but at the same time, you learned your lesson. You know what I'm saying? And we need to learn to stick together as a people. You said it in your story several times. Milwaukee is the most segregated town in the country. The most segregated. And we need to stop that right there. Because black people don't know Latinos, and Latinos don't know black people. And what's not understood is we're all the same. We're all in the same boat. We all in the same system that's racist, that don't give a damn about neither one of us. And we too busy fighting each other for the scraps that they putting out there for all of us. And we have to understand that. And until we get our people to understand it, I'm talking about me and the Latinos, until we understand that the black community is in the same boat that we in, we ain't never gonna do nothing. We ain't never gonna move forward. We need to stop the stereotypes between one another so that we can move forward as a whole and change this system that's out there right now. You know, our people get in office and they forget about the people. They fall right into the politics. They fall right in
Politics.
line. They fall right in line with everybody else, and they step on all of us, so they get that bag and get beyond us. And that's gotta stop right there.
Thank you, Ray. So, I wanna make sure that there's like a little bit of moment for people to ask questions or whatever. I wanna take a couple questions and then I wanna end this with what's your call to action to us as your community? You laid it on the line. So, in the meantime, briefly, and don't be mad at me if I'm like, hold up. So, any comments or questions for the panel?
Yes.
All right.
I just took a lot in, including the movie, y'all did an amazing job, to say that. And not to minimize the condition, it's a lot of flaws around.
Absolutely.
We talking like 2 blocks down, that's like, one of the biggest murder scenes in the city of Milwaukee, 27th to Atkinson, in front of that corner store. We go there almost every other day or 3 times a week because somebody getting shot or killed over there. One of the things, I'm sorry, I'm Dante Martin, by the way, part of 414 Life and EXPO and many hats, but I wanted to say to you, I watch a lot of hood movies, and there be a lot of shootings and killings and stuff in these movies, and I caught myself one day like, man, why am I watching this stuff? I live this. Today I came in here non-biased. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to have a preconceived notion of another brother getting shot for to tell a story kind of thing. And it actually put tears in my eyes when I seen that you went through all those surgeries, that part, because I did too, I had 13 of them. And also that you forgave him. That part, that hit me, like for real. Cause I never forgave the people who shot me. So that just gave me some hope, possibly. But I do wanna say that I'm glad that this is going on. We actually need to reach out and get these kids involved. Cause these kids need to see this. These kids need to hear y'all talk on the panel. So whatever 414 Live, whatever we can do, let us know. And we there.
That's awesome. Thank you, Don.
And let me just say something about that, you know, even though, you know, that was 5 years. I went through my journey through them 5 years. I wasn't the same person I started that I was at the end, you know what I'm saying? And I still, even from the point of the end of that movie, I still was growing, you know? You saying the exact same thing. Right now, we efforting to try to get Nathan involved in this whole thing, because his voice is needed. You know, when we did a Genius Bank with a bunch of young kids, and the one thing they kept reiterating to us is how they wanna hear things from other young kids. They want, you know, lead-based, you know, kid-based activities and things like that, because they tune us out sometimes. You know, we can get to them to a certain extent, but there's another influence, there's another level of influence that they're receiving from other kids. So I agree with you 100%. You know, we need to have kids involved in this, and we are definitely efforting to have one of the main people, you know, that can have a voice and touch other kids. So, and thank you. For sure. Your journey, that's the healing that we're looking for.
Thank you.
I got a question and a comment.
Sure.
Claude, first of all.
Could you say your name, sir?
Dante.
Stand up, Dante.
Another Dante. They're everywhere.
Can't hear you, brother.
Excuse me, my comment first is, I think one of the things I think you highlighted, and I want to ask you if I'm accurate in this assumption, is that another element of how injurious the criminal justice system is. And that part is how it looked like you were in a conflict where you want justice, but you don't want that kind of justice. And so it looked like you created a conflict where, without question, he deserves his time, no question about it. But So, in my perspective, that it created a conflict in you, is that correct?
I mean, you hit it on the head. Like, you know, I mean, not only, you know, from the beginning, I'm like, that's another young black man that's about to go to jail, you know, because, you know, somebody asked me before that, when I learned that he confessed, what was I thinking, you know? And the conflict hit, like, we ain't even going through a trial. He confessed. So we got a young man that's about to go to jail, and that's where our next journey goes. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, the juvenile system, that was a struggle for me. You know what I'm saying? Cause he was gonna be at home, so I had to actually deal with, okay, is he gonna learn the lesson that he needed to not be him or other kids his age? Were they gonna learn the lesson by seeing him sitting at home? You know, then all of a sudden, I gotta think, now I'm about to send him to a prison. What? You know, it just did not, it was a major conflict with me.
And so, as a guy that just came home, I just did 27, came home like a month and a half ago.
Welcome home, welcome home.
The conflict with accurate, because they don't do nothing when you're on the inside. They supposed to do this. They got you in a perfect position to rehabilitate you. They got you in a perfect position to enhance your thoughts, to inject some ideas in your head and in your spirit. You're in the perfect place. You can't go nowhere.
Yeah.
But they don't use it that way. So I think it was very important for you to highlight that conflict. I think people need to understand that. So I want to congratulate you on making that very clear.
Thank you.
That you got people that go through stuff that where they know they want justice, but they don't want your kind of justice.
Right.
This isn't the kind of justice that I want for the person that injured me.
Right.
So I respect that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dante. Maybe part 2 will be asking about what would have helped you before you went for 27.
Well, I can ask.
I know, I wanted to ask, you wanted to ask him too?
No, I'm just.
Yeah, I know
we
we're
got
at time.
10 minutes.
Okay, so, did you guys have your hands up? Okay, go ahead, and then we'll get to Phoebe, and then we're gonna move back to the final call to action.
Hi, my name is Lauren Cross. I know Uncle Claude personally. And I'm also with Milwaukee Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. We did a lot of work with Theodore Edgecombe's case. And I know, like, personally, that the justice system just kind of does overkill with putting people in jails and, like, sentencing and all that. Recently, we've been doing some work with the House of Corrections and the county supervisor on kind of like pulling away from prison profiteering. The county sup has a lot of control over HOC's like budget and whatnot. I know there are a lot of folks here have done like work specifically around people who are formerly incarcerated. I just wanted to hear, I guess like in you guys' experience, like what incentives do they get by like putting more people in prison? Like what do they get out of it? What do they get out of it? People that go in, how much are they changed by it? Like what needs to be changed?
You're gonna ask that kind of loaded question here at the end? Oh my Lord, but that is a fantastic question. I'm gonna let you all take that. I have ideas, but I'm gonna stay out of it. Go ahead.
I think first what they get is job security. I think right now the best career is corrections. Cause them prisons stay not only full, but overcrowded.
Overtime.
And so, exactly, so they get a whole lot of overtime because a lot of people don't wanna work in corrections. So that's why they put them out in the rural areas where there is no jobs, so that they can keep them fully staffed by people that live in the sticks. And the majority of the population in them prisons are people from the inner city. And so it fuels the systemic racism that we have going on, because the supremacy is the ones that's running the prisons. And we're the ones that's populating the prisons. So they can continue to beat on us the way they've been doing for hundreds of years, with these prisons that they keep building. They don't build universities. They don't build high schools. They don't build middle schools. They build prisons. The next big project in the city of Milwaukee is a juvenile prison.
Yep.
Within the city of Milwaukee, a juvenile prison. So, I mean, you know, that's the main thing, is job security.
It costs 10 times as much to keep a juvenile incarcerated, but we'll get to that. Anybody else wanna have one more answer with that question for these young ladies before we move?
I'm impressed that they're looking at prison profiteering.
Yeah.
For real. Because it's big business. It's big business, goods and services, phone services. It's just big business. And you have staff, guards with a high school education, making $100,000 a year because they getting all this overtime. And it's big business, period.
I just have to do a little disclaimer on that though, and just real quick, because it's true. And it's not helping anybody, because they have the people working there have the highest rates of alcoholism, addiction, domestic violence, divorce, and suicide. Everybody's getting sicker. It's not getting better.
Right.
So even though they're making this money, they're struggling with, and the last thing I think I would add to that is that you really need to go back to our Constitution and the historical racism of why prisons are the way they are, right? And so it's long before even opening up the door about money or goods. It's about keeping people in their place, so to speak, right? It's much deeper, and it's roots that those folks don't even know exist in their own indoctrination. So I don't wanna miss that. All right,
You got one back there.
okay.
Carl.
So Phoebe, I had Phoebe next. Is that who I had next?
Yes, I wanted to ask Claude because, my name is Phoebe. I'm an advocate for other organizations. I'm also a recovery, survivor of gun violence here in Milwaukee just a year ago. And made the news and everything, which is why I left Milwaukee, but I still come here because I am a determined individual to help people. I know it's a lot of youth that is seeking for tutors and seeking for recovery mentors and hopes of getting better education and better environment. So when I come here, I take people everywhere that they ain't never been in Wisconsin, show them that Wisconsin is a very beautiful place. But besides that, I say that because not only was I'm a victim of gun violence, and the suspect is known and still here walking freely in Milwaukee. Also, I was a juvenile waived into a dark court for a crime. And I actually had talked to and forgave the guys that sent me to prison and the guys that tried to pimp me out. I actually had contact with them before they went to prison, before they went. And I asked them, and I talked to them. So my thing is, at that time when he confessed it, because a lot of people don't confess. So that's a lot of strength right there. How did you not feel that he was already remorseful and he was seeking for help when he confessed?
And that's a good question.
And he forgave it. He already showed you that he was remorseful and he was hurting and he was seeking. You know what I mean?
Let him answer that. It's a tough one, Phoebe.
I just want to know, at
Yeah.
that time when he confessed, he was already guilty.
Right,
He told his confession.
right.
A lot of people don't.
Right.
So at that time that he confessed, before the police got him, how did you feel? What was your perspective on that?
Hey, God bless that you still here. You know what I'm saying? That's a hard journey. It's a tough journey. When he confessed, you definitely have that, like I told you, it flipped, because I know that it was out of my hands at that point in time. He confessed to a police officer. So I knew at that point in time it was out of my hands. I just had to reconcile with myself and my own anger. I had to go through the same steps. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm only human. So I had to go through the same steps of anger and things like that, But, you know, but at the time, I was like, okay, you had to come to terms with what the system is gonna allow you, you know, and try to make the best of it. That's why she was talking to us about him going and doing, you know, work with schools and everything like that. So we had to start looking at the positive side. But unfortunately, he might have thought he was doing something remorseful, but his actions was something different. You know, when you know, you can tell me whatever you wanna tell me, but what you do and show me is what I also look at. That man had he a man now, but that young boy, he had chances, and we was hoping for him. We never stopped, but he put himself in a situation where, you know, unfortunately, the surroundings and the things that I thought was not good for him, being at home was not helpful to his growth. So that's what, when I was looking at it, he has to get out of that environment to become the better person he needed to be.
Yeah.
So that's how I was looking at it.
Nice. Okay, quickly, then we gotta get Carl.
Just real quick, when you said he had to be taken out of his surroundings, so, my name is Rose, I'm sorry. I work for St. Charles, and just where you were at, I would be the one sitting in the back of the room as a crisis stabilizer. And I would be the one sitting in the back of the room, just as you talking, and I would be the one saying, nope, pull him out the house. He needs to be taken away from the house, he needs to be over here.
Yeah.
Because home is not going to give him that rehabilitation that he needs, but once again, because I've put in these hours I'm working with him, you're not gonna listen to me. But you paying me to chase this kid around Milwaukee. But you're not gonna listen to me, so that was my problem with the juvenile system,
Right.
is that you put me in place, but you don't wanna listen to me. So where would I go with that type of a situation? Because just like you were sitting there and he did what he did to you, I'm the same person they put in place to keep up with him and make sure he did AWOL all the time. See, AWOL, like I told Phoebe, I took his wheels off his chair. You gonna sit still. And if I got to sit you still, you gonna sit still, but I'm gonna take the wheels off the chair. And we gonna be done with the AWOL. But at the same time, my question is, what do you do with a situation when they put you there to do your job, but then you got me at bay where I can't do my job?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Go for it, Claude.
Oh,
Love
thank
it,
you.
Rose.
No
It ain't just for you, it's for anybody sitting across that
Yeah.
line.
But let me just say something, you know, and what you're saying is something that we have to really understand. We have been stripped of our ability to actually deal with the problems in our own community.
Yep.
They tell us how they're gonna, you know, go through our streets and police our streets. They don't empower, you know, you were just saying about men being men, they don't empower us to be men and women in our community, to take control of our community to do that. And that's something that we need to start to thinking about. Where have we gone into a place where all of this is in somebody else's hands, that don't live in our community, that don't, you know, and how do we change that? Cause you a person right there that probably can relate to Nathan way better than anybody that's in that system, but yet and still, they don't wanna listen to you. They wanna know more than you. And that's what, you know, and so that's what I talk about when we talk about rules and guidelines and in our lanes that we need to be in, and start to recognize what the issue is and attacking those issues. That's one of the issues I think that our community needs to take back so we can make some growth. Sometimes we gotta step back before we can go forward.
Yes, sir.
You know, so.
Ooh, it's getting fired up in here. We gotta, all right. I'm ready to go. All right, Carl, what do you got?
No, I just wanted to highlight a few things that I saw both from the video and from Victoria and Claude's story. I mean, I thought it was powerful. They both had put some things in there to really make us think. I felt like when the young man was back and forth to court, and like you said about St. Charles, as well as what you saw in court, my man, his current situation wasn't doing it. But what struck me about him on the film was that the potential consequences of him losing his life, his freedom, versus those actual consequences. When the judge said, okay, we're gonna put you behind this cage, behind this bar, loss washed over him in the video. And he exhaled and he slumped, and I thought, I know that too well. but from a standpoint of how to teach young people, my name's Carl, by the way, and I'm formerly incarcerated person. I spent 16 years in prison, before I released 6 years ago. And yes, I was one of those people that Jerome connected with that he was talking about. He didn't want to name us, but I'm one of them.
Right.
Amen.
I wasn't even talking about it.
And so, and so I say that because I learned while I was teaching this stuff in prison. And another one of my partners right there that I encountered while I was there was that knowledge, for a young person like himself, like us in that scenario, it isn't about academics, it's about experience. And we as a culture have this great hindsight in 2020. You know, our hindsight is beautiful. And so we know how to give people ways and approaches through that kind of a lens. And that's why they call us subject matter experts. But the system, like you said, does not empower us because the system doesn't have a restorative framework that you and Judge Geske was working on. And so I really felt that, but I also felt your pain, sister, when you, cause you said it in such a way like, I had to hurt this baby in order to be okay, and I ain't okay with that.
I took an oath, she said.
Yeah,
I took an oath.
the Hippocratic oath, and I was like, and that struck me.
Yes.
That was another piece in the film that struck me like, man, did y'all really just hear that y'all made this sister do something that was against her value system, and she gotta live with that? And I was like, damn, let me put my pen down for a second. I was like, I don't even write. So I want to highlight that. I felt that when you said that.
Which is unusual.
And which is very unusual. But the restorative framework, I want to lift that up before we go. You said that we're not empowered in that way. I learned from going through the system firsthand. And before I was a perpetrator, I was a victim, and I was an unworthy victim from a neighborhood that's unworthy of help and resources. So let me put that, let me phrase it like that. We're taught that the way that we get justice is through that pound of flesh that my man highlighted. And if you're unwilling to help us get that pound of flesh out of another somebody that looks just like you, then we don't want you part of this process. And how do we change that? And what you talked about in your work, you, your wife, tell her we said hi, by the way.
Yeah.
How are you all shaping and shifting the justice system so that it does empower the people that you mentioned?
You know, the thing about it is that, you know, we're going into the legal side.
Yes, sir.
Only thing we can do is try to exemplify what we're talking about in winning court cases. You know, we have to try to go in there and make case law. So we have to try to persuade, unfortunately, the people that don't want to be persuaded, you know. But at that point, that's what we can do. We can fight the good fight by, you know, by using their own laws against them. That's what we can do. But the thing about it is that we can also empower ourselves, you know. I'm not a big, we have to empower ourselves with our voting blocks. We have to put people in places in which they can make a difference. You know what I'm saying? We have to put places in which, and then you have coordination between two people. You saw, when I was in there talking to that district attorney, that detective was standing right there. They work together. They're not in the same department. One is police forcing, one is enforcing the laws, but they right there working together. And that's what we gotta start trying to do. We have to put people in different positions and start to working together and coordinate. You know, and so, you know, but it's a process. We in a situation from what, hundreds of years that have put up the system? That's why I said we have to recognize the issues, because we ain't gonna be the people that's gonna to implement the change. Our kids and our kids' kids are the ones that are gonna finalize this stuff. But we can start by recognizing the issues and putting the blueprint down and let them perfect it.
Give Claude a round of applause. Give everybody a round of applause. So I wanted to do a last call to action, but I think I kind of heard it. So I'm wondering, I'm thinking, what if we wanted a part 2 think tank discussion with all of us who come from different places, if you're ever interested? So let us know as a team, because we got this expertise, you got that expertise, and could you imagine how powerful it would be to show up in the places? The last thing I would say is, people who are on paper can't vote, and that's intentional too.
Absolutely.
So we're signing these somewhere, someday, and I can't say it now, outside in the hallway, I can tell you can sign a petition. Okay, so anyway, gosh dang, it's over. I know. So So we gotta end it, one last statement, Ray, and then here's what I'm asking, you know, anybody can help us clean up, cause we actually have to pull the broom out the door at
There
9.
was a brother in the back room had his hand up a long time.